Hey, so today I have two special guests with us. I have my friend Simon and then his bride, his wife, Maureen, with us. And I'm excited to have them because maybe a month or so ago, we sat down over coffee and a few things became clear. Number one, their love and passion for them, their faith, and their family is a beautiful thing. Number two was it became clear that Maureen's father has played a significant role in her life and has impacted her life in a major positive way. And so I thought, I want to invite them to be a guest on our show so we could hear more about her father and we could discover and learn from her and some of these lessons that she's learned from her father. So, Maureen and Simon, how long have you guys been married together now?
So we've been married 9 years. It was 9 years,
9 years.
May 23rd of this year.
Okay,
Yes.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
And then how many children do you guys have?
Two girls, five
Two,
and
and
two,
what's the ages?
5 and 2.
5 and 2. Okay, so you
Yep.
guys must have locked yourself in a room, put pillows around the door, and I don't hear anything. It's quiet there.
Yeah, thankfully one of them is asleep and the other one is in school.
Yeah.
So we have
Okay,
a window of time to work with.
got it.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thanks for being here today. So, Marina, I'm curious. Tell us a little bit about your father. Where is he from?
Mhm.
Where are you from? Tell us some about your background.
Sure. So I'm from Kenya, and also Simon is from Kenya. So I
Okay.
came to the United States back in 2004. But prior to that, my dad had come. He came in 2000 from Kenya,
Mhm.
and he basically, he didn't have much when he came to the United States because back
Mhm.
home in Kenya, he was a pharmacist and he had started multiple businesses. But he came upon hard times, and so he came to the US to find greener pastures. And so he had heard from relatives that, the US has really great opportunities, and, it's the American dream that everybody comes here for. So he, followed in the footsteps of his relatives and ended up in Wichita, actually, Wichita, Kansas, initially. Yeah, and that's a bit background on him.
So that was around 2004.
So I came in 2004. He came in 2000.
Okay.
Yeah,
So let's see. You and Simon have been together 10 years now. So
yeah,
that's more like 20 years ago. So how did you and Simon meet?
yeah,
We actually met in church.
yeah.
So
Really?
we were attending. There's a church over in Kansas,
Hmm.
and I started going there probably about 2009. Um, and after a couple of years, we started a dancing group, in a dance team in church,
Yeah,
and we
Okay.
happened to meet in the dance team. So that's where we met. So
yeah.
in church, on dance group.
So both of you are you both into dancing then?
Oh
Oh yeah, we
yeah,
were. Yep.
very
Hmm.
much.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
So next week you're gonna dance at Heart and Hand, Simon. We're gonna put you on the spot, man.
I think the keyword there was were. We were
Oh, past
dancing.
tense.
Yes.
Past tense. Okay, might be a little rusty now.
Yeah.
So who made the
I still
first
love
move
it.
then?
What was that?
Who made the first move?
I did.
Oh,
Definitely.
you did. Look at
Oh yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
jumped on that one quickly. Okay.
She was a
Good
little
for
too
you.
shy.
Nice. What year was that?
That was 2013.
13. Yeah.
2013.
Okay.
Yep.
Hmm.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys got married within 12 months then, if I'm doing my math
So yeah,
right.
we got married 2015.
2015. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Initially met 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, congratulations. You guys have built a beautiful family and life together. I've had the benefit of hearing some of the personal stories that Simon has shared with us at Heart and Hand. That's where I met Simon. Heart and Hand, if you're not familiar with the area, it's in Belton. It's a phenomenal nonprofit for many reasons. The impact that it has for people that are just in a hard spot, whether financially or they need their driver's license, birth certificate, transportation for work. If they have a real practical need, um, Heart and Hand has so many resources. And how I met Simon was we both show up and our paths cross at Heart and Hand in Belton. And so I've had the privilege of learning about him and some of the stories and his experiences. And so with now back to your father, what was
Yeah.
his first name?
Godfrey.
Godfrey?
Yeah.
Godfrey.
God
Godfrey.
Godfrey. Okay,
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
thank you.
Hmm.
Godfrey. Okay. So how long was he and your mom married then?
Um, you know what? I don't have the exact number of years, but they did divorce once he
Okay.
came here.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so during that time that you're in a new country and there's so many
Hmm.
transitions, it was really difficult on their marriage.
Well
So
then,
yeah, they ended up going their separate ways.
I see. Okay.
Mhm.
So with Godfrey, what was he the most passionate about looking back over the years?
So truly, when I think of his life, it was all
Mhm.
about just sacrifice. He was so passionate about, sacrificing so other people can live better, have better
Mhm.
opportunities. I remember hearing stories from like my cousins and people that we grew up with about how, he would always visit them in school. So in Kenya, we have a lot of boarding schools. So you are visited by your parents and uncles and aunties like every 3 months or so. And so he would give up his time and his money and resources to go and visit, like, my cousins. And also, like, for get togethers, when we would have like Christmas celebrations back home, he would like buy all the food and make sure everything is provided for, in order to have a happy, Christmas together. So he was just very giving. And I think he got it from his own parents, because he's always told us about how his parents just sacrificed everything so he could go to school. Like even when they couldn't afford it, they just really tried their best, because they themselves didn't have, all the education. But yeah, I think what characterizes him the most is just his sacrifice and his desire to see other people, better, if he could help it.
How come that was so important to him, you think? Because that's,
Yeah.
not everybody thinks that way. I saw on Facebook
Yeah.
a quote that said something like the man or woman who plants the tree that the next generation will eat the fruit of
Yeah.
is beginning to understand the purpose of life. And so it sounds like your father was thinking bigger than himself.
Yeah.
And he was willing to make sacrifices, meaning it came at a cost in order to impact your guys' life to hopefully give you a better hope and future, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, I truly think it's just those values that were instilled in him by his own
Hmm.
parents. Yeah, because even when, he didn't have all the financial capability to do stuff. Like I remember he just would like talk about all the things he would like to do in the future, when he did have the capacity.
Mhm.
Yeah, and yeah, I think, yeah, if I can reflect on where that may have come from, it definitely was from his parents. And also, like where he grew up, it's a town called Moranga. So I'm sure he was exposed to just people who didn't have everything that his family may have had. And just seeing poverty and seeing people that needed help, I think that definitely drew on his heartstrings to be able to want to make a difference in their lives. Yeah. So
So what's share with us some of the bigger picture lessons, some of the important things that you've learned from him
yeah.
looking back.
So definitely, other than, making sacrifices, it would definitely be like dreaming big, because my dad,
Mm,
he could have just been comfortable, and just, not even thought about coming to the US, because I mean, I have relatives that never, desire that. And that would have been fine. He still would have had a good legacy, but then he just had this vision and dream about the future and giving us each the opportunity to be in a country where you just have access to all opportunities, like you don't have to pay for even an elementary school education. It's free over here. And also secondary school, you don't have to pay for that. Like you have access to like the world stage, in this country. And he was able to see that from an early point in his life, and just made the sacrifice so that could happen. So I would say making sacrifices and dreaming big. I
yeah.
think another one that we both noticed, like towards his journey while he was fighting his cancer diagnosis, is that he kept the faith. My goodness, my dad kept the faith even when, the news was just bad news after bad news after bad news. Like he had this ability to just keep a positive attitude. And we would come home here and we used to have prayers every Wednesday. with the extended family. And he would show up every single time. He would have a positive attitude. He would talk about, the fact that he has faith in God. Yeah, that was very inspirational. And considering that he just recently gave his life to Christ, so it's not like he had been building upon his faith all his life. It was just a very recent, development in his life. But the way that he just held on strongly to that faith, was so inspiring, you know.
Yeah, it's so.
Yeah,
Yeah. So how did he do you know any of the details about how he became a believer?
absolutely. Yeah.
Mm,
So maybe you can answer that one.
Yeah, I think right before, I think a couple months before he was diagnosed with cancer,
mhm.
I think we had gone to see him at his, he was living by himself. So, and I remember that time she spoke, we were speaking on the way there, and she just expressed concern, I don't know whether dad is saved, and, I think we should be, talking to him about, getting saved. And so that day we went there, and as we were talking, sharing a meal, she asked him, where are you at, when it comes to salvation? And at that time, he said he believed in God, but he wasn't saved yet, but he was thinking about it. Uh, but he said, he's gonna take his time, and when it's time, when it's the right time, he'll give his life to Christ. Actually, a few months after that, that's when he was diagnosed with cancer, and it was pretty late. It was stage 4, and I think it was, how long after that? I think it was a few months after that, maybe
No,
2 3
so
months.
he was diagnosed February
February
8th.
8th.
Yeah, and then February 12th is
February
when he
12th.
gave his life to Christ.
Yes.
So I
Wow.
remember we were sitting here in the living room,
Mhm.
and he loves to watch Joel Osteen. So that's the sermon that we were watching. And in the moment when, he was leading people to Christ that hadn't accepted Christ yet, then my dad just stood up and he raised up his hands. He was like, God, I surrender. Like he was so emotional. And in that moment, I saw him humble his heart in a way that I've never seen before, because I think prior to that, like he did have a hardened heart towards God. For some reason he just never thought the timing was right, or and he would pray and everything, but just that decision to give his life, he had never quite made that. So I just saw
Wow.
a humility that came over him, and a way that he just submitted to God in that moment, and he really cried. And yeah, that's when he gave his life to Christ. Yeah.
How special that you guys got to be part of that experience for him looking back. I mean,
Mhm.
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was such a privilege. I'm so glad that, we got to stay with him during that period.
Right.
Yeah, to be able to see that.
Yeah, that's pretty special for sure. I
Yeah.
bet it was very meaningful to him as well, you know?
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Very
Yeah.
much. Yeah, I think there's a few moments where he would just sit us down and just tell us how grateful he is. And that
Mm,
wasn't him back in the day.
Yeah.
He's just your typical African dad, like non-emotional. And I mean,
okay.
he's a good and kind person, but then he just was
Yeah.
not in touch with his emotions all the time. So
Okay.
for him to just go through that transformation where he sits us down and he tells us, not only about how he's grateful, but also like any questions that we had, or
Mhm.
things that we wanted to bring up from the past, things that he may have done wrong in the past. He was so willing to address those topics that before he wasn't willing at all. um,
So
so
beautiful.
yeah,
Wow. What a gift.
very much.
Oh yeah.
So you really got to experience your father, I mean, in a whole new way,
Oh
where
yes.
Mhm.
it sounds like he was a good father and a good man, and yet it went to a whole nother level, it sounds like, where you got to see the more emotional side of him,
Yeah.
where his heart it sounds like he got emotional, meaning his heart got soft,
Hmm.
and he was willing to open up about stuff from the past and have conversations around it if you guys desired.
Yes.
And he also, um, when I think about finishing well, I mean, I know only a little bit at this point, and I could see where it sounds like at the right time things started to turn around in a way he really finished his life in a strong, positive way. It sounds like.
Yes, that is so funny you mentioned that, because the sermon during his home or funeral service, the
Mhm.
pastor talked about finishing well. Like
Yeah.
that was the
Yeah.
title of his sermon. because it just represents his life so accurately that he chose to finish well, because he could have chosen otherwise. He could have chosen to be angry with God and to just
Right.
blame God for the outcome, just the fact that he was facing that diagnosis. But he chose to have faith instead. He chose to lean into what God was doing in his heart. So, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. He finished well.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So what would be another, so your dad became a believer.
Yeah.
Was there an uptick in his positivity, or was he already a pretty positive guy looking back?
So there was an uptick in his positivity as far as he had more time to spend, with us, because he
Okay.
he was working a lot, prior to getting sick.
Hmm.
So as far as us getting to see him more often and like getting to see that positivity shine through, definitely, yeah, there was an uptick with that. Um, yeah, and I think if it wasn't for him giving his life to God, I think he really would have, like I said, like his demeanor probably would have just changed where he's just angry and blaming God. And for me, I definitely noticed that he was positive in a way that was unexpected, for having faced through that difficult setback. Yeah.
Simon, when you think about your father-in-law, what's one of the things that you learned from him that you really intend to carry on?
I think I would say the major one is like the one she had mentioned, faith.
Hmm.
Um, just seeing him go through that journey, and we were able to see from the day he was diagnosed, because the day he was told he has cancer, I was sitting with him in the ER up to the last day, just seeing him through that journey. And I mean, we went through a lot of things. We so many hospital visits. Just seeing him, stand by his faith and just keep the faith through all that. That it was a challenge to me. It was just a reminder of how the Bible tells us to, despite what's going on in your life, that just keep your focus on Jesus. Psalms 23 talks about, even when we walk through the darkest valley, the valley of the shadow of death, not to fear and to just keep on the faith. And I saw him literally do that. And, it got to a point where we were like, I think at this point we have to start making some arrangements, because it got so advanced. And we were not, he was just focused on healing just all the way. And we had to make some decisions here and there. And the doctors are telling us, just you guys need to start planning. But he was still just standing strong in the faith. And that was, I think that's the biggest lesson I learned from him, that despite what's going on in your life, despite what you go through, just keep the faith. I think that's the biggest one. Yeah.
Is there anything that you could put your finger on that he did specifically
Yeah.
where he modeled what it looks like to keep the faith?
I think during his most toughest moments, like the few days that he went to the house, we had to go to the hospital in the ER when he was in a lot of pain. Um, at that time, sometimes you can be facing a big challenge, and like my wife said, just be angry at God, start asking questions. Uh, Even during those most difficult times, he would most of the time I was with him, but he would turn to me and just tell me, I still believe in God. Can we pray together? He would ask me to pray. That it was just crazy, because he's in so much pain, and he just wants to turn to God and just ask for prayers, and um, keep confessing the faith even when he's hurting. When he was in so much pain, at some point you'd feel like just crying yourself. But during those times that he would still talk about his faith. He would still say, "I'm still believing for complete healing." At those tough moments, that's when he would stand up and just declare and say, "I still believe God heals today. I still believe I'm gonna get healed 100%."
Yeah.
So yeah.
And something else that comes to mind is I have shared about how he divorced my mom, or they got a divorce when we were growing up. And during this time of his journey, he actually called, or he reached out to my mom's side of the family, to basically apologize, and say, like he just wants to make amends with that side of the family. Even though they're in Kenya, even though it's been so many years since they've spoke, just that gesture of him being so humble, to agree to just make that phone call, in order to make amends with that side of the family. Because, I mean, it was something that I think had weighed really heavily on my mom and that side of the family, and even us as his children, because we think about, just how difficult their marriage was. And these are things that he never spoke of or never took accountability for or anything like that. And in this moment, to have that willingness in his heart to just call that side of the family and apologize, that spoke volumes more than anything else. And it just showed me how, like, God was up to something so much greater than, what he was going through in the moment. Like, he was restoring, relationships. He was healing us as his children, giving us that healing that we've yearned for,
Yeah.
for years and years. And just, I think it's that example that it's never too late. It's never too late to make amends and to make things right, even if, you messed up in the most horrible ways. Like, you
Yeah.
can still fix, and you can still ask for forgiveness, from God,
Mm.
and be able to see restoration happen.
So good.
Yeah.
It it reminds me of how the Bible talks about you'll know a tree by its fruit. And it's neat hearing these stories about your father where it's like, nobody he didn't have to do that, right? To
Right.
go back and to apologize and do what you can to make some wrongs right.
Yeah.
Like as I hear that, that to me that's God at work. That's God
Oh yeah.
doing what he does because God is in the reconciliation business, right?
Yeah.
And the Bible talks about do everything I can to live at peace with everybody, to be a peacemaker. And so it's neat to hear about how your father's really newfound faith impacted him in such a way so quickly that he was going back to the other side of the world to make some wrongs right and
Yeah.
to apologize and to own his stuff. I
Hmm.
mean, that's a beautiful that's so when I think and I keep using the word beautiful because I'm trying to find other words and yet what a beautiful story that he has and the fact that you guys had a front row seat to see this happen.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just a gift from God.
Yeah. And actually,
Wow.
at the time that he wanted to make that phone call, he wasn't
Hmm.
strong enough to do it,
Mm.
but so he had, Simon speak on his behalf, basically,
Wow.
to relay that message. But yeah,
Mhm.
just the fact that even in his weakness, in his body, in his pain, he
Mhm.
was willing to just do what he needed to do. Yeah. So I could
Wow.
go on and on about my dad.
Oh, I bet so. Yeah. Is there a favorite story that you have, just
Yeah.
maybe from your childhood or another time where it just is one of your favorites about your dad?
Well, growing up, I remember just how we used to look forward to him like coming home from work every
Mhm.
day, and he used to have this funny song that he would sing like whenever he came in, and he would lift us up in the air. Because kids love to be thrown up in the air, and there's a song you probably will not understand it, but he
Mhm.
it used to go like Chiriri Kamodo Cham Cham. Chiriri Kamodo Cham Cham. So he would just make up silly songs and like just have fun with us as kids, and we just have all these memories of him being super jovial, every time that he came home. Like we would even do hide and seek sometimes where we hide under the bed or just hide in the closet somewhere and make him find us, when he got home.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I remember so many like deep conversations that we had. This is, way before him getting sick, just moments where he told us, like, I consider you guys my friends. You're not my children anymore. Like, you guys are my friends, and just how that meant a lot, to know that we're, getting closer and closer as time goes, and we're getting to, make those memories together as a
Wow.
yeah.
What's one of the Is there a tradition that you and Simon have created together that's something that you guys have been doing intentionally within your household with your children that is special to you? Any traditions that are meaningful?
I think prayers, how we pray, before
Yeah,
they go
I'd say
to bed.
prayers. Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever we go to bed, in the evening
Mhm.
or, at nighttime, we have a prayer session, all of us. And our
Mm.
kids are 5 and 2. But it's
Mhm.
so funny because we've done it, often enough that now our 5-year-old is the one that prays for us. Like she'll have moments where she's like,
Wow.
it's my turn to pray. And, she she almost looks like a pastor actually when she stands up and like puts her hand on our heads, and says, bless mommy and daddy and thank you for the wonderful day that
Wow.
we had. So
And then ask who's next.
I know she's like, who's next? Who's next?
Who's next?
And trying to
They
go,
take turns. Yeah.
yeah, to pray for her sister and whoever is in the room,
Wow.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the tradition of prayer, um,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely that is something that we've tried to implement in our family, and we can see it catching on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I
So is
remember.
that morning at night? Is there what's your guys' rhythm look like for that?
It's usually at night,
At night,
at
okay.
bedtime, right before they go to bed.
Yeah, we try to do a
Okay.
Bible verse and then also say a prayer together so that, they can know the word and also
Yeah.
commune with God and have that moment to pray.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. So
glory to
is this
God.
are you guys like holding hands or in a circle? Is it that formal or
Not,
what's it look?
I think we do different things, different times. So
Okay.
sometimes
yeah,
we'll kind of kneel down, hold hands. Other times she
Okay.
wants to ask who's next, and she'll go to whoever is next and just lay her hand
I
on that
see.
person. But we're all sitting, in the same place on the same, like on the couch.
yeah. And there was
Um,
a
Okay.
time where she, like, we used to do prayer caves. So, like, she goes
Hmm.
all the way down and puts her head, on the floor, kind of just, dog's pose, I guess, on the
Hmm.
floor. And that's how she used to pray, for some time. So, just, I mean, different things. I
yeah,
think we try and not make it so, like, technical or, like, mechanical.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
just how you are in that day. Just approach God, know that you have access to
Okay.
Him at
hmm
any time, that you can pray
Yeah.
at any time. And yeah, hopefully that's, something they'll, hold on to.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned this idea of dreaming big and thinking big. What does that look like for you guys when you think about your future? What are you guys hoping for or aspiring for in the future? Anything you'd like to share?
one of the
Hmm.
things that we really want to pursue is financial independence. We want
Hmm.
to be financially stable, and one of the desires that we've had for some time is to really set our children up. We don't want
Mhm.
them to go through the same thing that we went, school loans and all that. So we want to set them up,
Yeah.
and even thinking further, the children of their children, our grandchildren, just basically generational wealth. Just starting that because,
Mhm.
the way we grew up, we didn't have that. Our parents tried the best they could,
Sure.
but we thank God they were able to instill the knowledge, that they gave us to kind of invest and think about the future. It's not just about today. So just using that knowledge and just making that first step, because I think personally I've learned a lot of things when it comes to creating wealth in this country because you see, wealth being passed from generation to generation. You find someone pretty young doing very well. You wonder why, but it's because someone at some point in their lineage thought about them. They thought about the future, their great grandchildren, and they wanted them to be comfortable, financially free. So they started, you know, habits or doing things that would really create wealth for generations to come. So that's something that we've had a desire to do, but we're in that process of just kind of pinpointing and just coming up with specifics as far as how we need to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, just that generational wealth and financial freedom. Traveling, we have a desire to travel to various continents, just be able to have a list of, actually, we do have a bucket list of places that we want to go. And yeah, just hitting those one at a time. Yeah, I would say that's another one that's pretty.
Yeah.
Where's one of the bucket list destinations for you guys?
um, okay, let's say it together and see if we'll say the same place.
Uh,
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Zanzibar.
Simon didn't say anything.
Oh, have a look.
Madagascar? Zanzibar? I
Oh,
forgot the name.
okay. Zanzibar.
What's yours? Is that your spot, Simon?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, because they have good food. Yeah.
And
Oh,
yeah,
so
it's
you've been
just
there
beautiful.
before.
No,
Yeah, we've never
just
been there.
pictures, seeing
Yep.
pictures.
Oh, got
Yep.
it. Okay.
Yep.
I'm with you. Just
Yeah,
seen the
it's not very
photos.
far from Kenya, so we kind of see
Yeah.
pictures, and we've seen other people's pictures, the experiences
Mhm.
there. So it's a place we'd love to go.
That's good. I love what you guys shared about legacy, right? Because the name of the podcast is Five Pillar Legacy, where we focus on faith, family, fitness, finances, and fun. And so I've been learning so much about legacy here the past few months. And legacy is really about when it's all said and done, what impact do we have on the people that we're going to influence people in life, right? Good or bad. And yet, what legacy answers the question, what's the impact that I leave, starting with those in my household and then outward into the world from there? What are the stories that are going to be told about us someday when it's all said and done? How are we moving the family tree forward towards a better future with the actions that I take right now, day to day, on how I live my life? I'm fascinated and extremely passionate about that topic, borderline obsessive, just thinking about it. So fascinating to me when I heard the statistic that 9 out of 10 men do not know their great grandfather's first name. And I thought to myself, number one, that's sad for many reasons. Number two, how would I have to live my life in order to be unforgettable to the future generations to where there's stories told because of the positive impact
Yeah.
about great grandpa Chris Ward, right?
Yeah.
And his bride Ashley Ward. So I love what I'm sensing as far as what you guys are passionate about. And I don't consider it coincidence that our paths have crossed. Next month, putting together a conference called Elevate. It's the first time I've ever put together a conference. I've been a part of probably hundreds of conferences for other people, and yet the goal is that I want to rally people like-minded, meaning that they're looking to elevate, go to the next level in their life, and moving forward. This is the first time I've talked about this part. It's going to be called Legacy Conference.
Okay.
At first, I wanted to use the word elevate because I wanted that. I trust that it's going to resonate with people that
Yeah.
are looking to elevate and go to the next level. So what I've done is I'm rallying my friends, rallying influential business leaders, entrepreneurs, because I believe one of the purposes for business is to fund legacy, to fund our life. And so that's where I have 4 keynote speakers lined up. And so it would be wonderful if you guys can come next month.
Yeah.
And it's going to be at the Maverick Event Space in Kansas City,
Okay.
October 26th from 10 a.m. to 1.
Okay.
And I promise it would be a good use of your guys' time.
Yeah.
And I think there's a few people that you'd be really glad to meet. One of them being is I would love the opportunity to introduce you guys to my wife, Ashley. If she was here, I would pull her in to introduce you. I trust that she'll be home shortly, and yet we'll see. The other thing is Simon, I follow you on YouTube. I see
Thanks.
I trust it's okay if I bring this up,
Oh,
and
yeah,
yet
it's okay.
yeah, I love what you're sharing on YouTube, where you're sharing truths from God's word with the world via YouTube. So would you share with us what the name of your YouTube channel is? And I'll put the link in the description so people can click on it and go find you on YouTube. What's the name of your channel?
So the name of the channel is Reality of Jesus.
Reality of Jesus.
Yes. So and it's basically teaching and bringing the message of God to the world, basically revealing the reality of Jesus to the world. It's something that God has put in my heart. It's something that has weighed on me heavily for some time, and I think this is a good first outlet where I've decided to share, my passion.
Yeah.
And yeah, the message is simple: just bringing the reality of Jesus to the people. Because it's one thing to hear about Jesus, it's one thing to read about Jesus, it's one thing to to go to a conference or go to a church. It's a whole different
Right.
thing when you face the reality, when you're dealing with Jesus himself, encouraging that interaction, that face to face, making it personal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
so good. Tell me the name of your channel again?
reality of Jesus.
Reality of Jesus.
Yes.
How did you come up with that title?
Well, actually, one day I was driving to work, uh, and I was just thinking. I had had an encounter with the Lord a few months before, where I just woke up and he just told me this verse. At that time, I didn't know it was a verse, but he said, pursue my kingdom and my righteousness, and
Mm.
everything else will be added unto you. And from that point, I really had this heaviness. Um, that's the best way
Like
I
a
can put
burden.
it. It's like a burning
A
desire,
burden.
a burden, really to
Mm.
pursue him. And I just couldn't help myself. So I started pursuing him and reading the word and just trying to find out what was what was going on in me. And one day I'm just driving to work, and I'm just kind of meditating on what he wants me to do, because I mean it was so heavy on me, and I didn't understand what was happening. And I actually missed my route to work, and it's somewhere I've driven for many years, but I missed my route. I took a different route, but I turned around. But right before I got to work, these words came to mind: reality, Jesus,
Mm.
reality of Jesus.
Yeah.
A couple of times, and I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's it. You want me to share about your reality. And that's how I came up with the name. So,
That's so good.
yeah.
Wow. So I'm going to include the link to your YouTube channel in the comments. So if you're what I appreciate about what you have going on, Simon, is that they're easy to digest, meaning it's not an hour and a half lecture. They're very simple, basic principles that you make fun, and I appreciate your creativeness as far as your storytelling and your approach. It's refreshing,
Yeah.
and they're easy to digest. They're only usually a few minutes long, so keep on keeping on with that. And
Thank
I really appreciate your guys' investment of your time together. I love what you guys are building together. And I just want to encourage you to keep locking arms as a household and keep going. I believe God has big plans and a beautiful plan and purpose for you and your family.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. Thank you so
Yeah, it's my
much. And I
pleasure.
also wanted to share we have a
Mhm.
website for my dad's legacy as
Oh,
well.
mhm.
So we plan to do certain like projects down the line, giving back to Kenya and the hometown that he
Wow.
comes from. So I can share that link with you. It's
Please
Mungai
do.
Kamao Legacy, but I'll spell
Okay.
it out, and share that with you.
That sounds good. Yeah. Text that
.com.
over to me and I'll make
Okay,
sure to include that. Thank you for mentioning that.
no problem. Thank you.